Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us today in this live lecture coming to you from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. This is our second lecture today because of our schedule for the next few days. Today's date is Oye Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar. And in the Roman Catholic calendar, today's date is 6/19/2025. And we encourage you to start using our Igbo lunar calendar. Our Igbo lunar calendar is supposed to be coming first before the colonial, foreign, Western Roman Catholic calendar, which we are using right now. And remember, at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call Ako Nuche in Igbo language. And we are primarily set up to decolonize your mindset, your brain from mental slavery. And therefore, join us, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and other social media platforms. Because we package and present lectures from Biafran, Igbo man, and African perspectives. The way you should be seeing things. You see things from how it concerns you and not how other cultures sees them or how it concerns them. The title of today's lecture is BENUE Killings. The BENUE Killings. We want you to know that the BENUE people are entrapped. They are in between the Fulani, takiya, and Igbophobia. The BENUE killings you are seeing every time is because the Benue population, they are in between, they are entangled, they are entrapped in Fulani, takiya, and Igbophobia. And before we continue, we have to give you historical background, because we always do, to bring you to the present. Remember, Britain got Nigeria from 1884 to 1885 Berlin Conference, where the colonial masters met and brought the map of Africa on a big table and shared Africa like bread to themselves, and created the artificial boundaries we now call countries in Africa. That was where Britain got the geographical location called Nigeria. And Britain amalgamated, that is put together, the southern and the northern Nigeria together as one country. Because before they came, everybody was doing their thing. And when they put them together in 1914, they called them Nigeria. All of them artificial boundaries, both the ones from 1884 and the one that Britain did in 1914 by putting the North and South together. And if you look at the map of Nigeria today, you can see that the North Central included the Igbo people. Many Igbo communities are in Benue, are in Kogi, are even in Taraba. And so all those artificial boundaries, they call it North Central. And you hear some northern leaders saying one North, which included Northeast and Northwest and North Central. All of them make one North. But naturally, the Benue people, the Taraba people, the Kogi people, and the Biafran people, they have common culture. They have almost the same culture. Christians and animists, those not worshiping any foreign religion. So both the Benue people and Taraba people and Plateau, even Plateau, and the Biafrans, the Easterners, they have the same culture. But because of artificial colonial boundaries from Britain and their caretaker Fulani people, some of them believe that they are not. So that is one of the problems about these killings that you see in Benue State. So Britain is the owner of Nigeria, while the Fulani Caliphate is their caretaker. Because when they were handing over, even history had it that when they handed over power to Ahmadu Bello, that Zik and Awo were not even there. And other manipulations they did, like the census and even the election itself was manipulated to make sure that they give power to a northern candidate. And so Britain is the owner of Nigeria, and then the Fulani Caliphate is their caretaker. So that is the setup we have in Nigeria. And the military, everything was tilted to favor the caretaker, the Fulani Caliphate, who will be managing the country for them. And that's how it's been from that time up till now. And so the Benue people are entrapped in the Fulani takiya of giving them false sense of belonging by including them in the one North. They gave them false sense of belonging to the big North that owns Nigeria, that manages Nigeria. And then during the genocidal war between Nigeria and Biafra, they appointed General Yakubu Gowon, who was from Plateau State, the same Middle Belt, to lead that war. So that also gave them false sense of belonging to the North. And you remember, David Mark is also from that area, and he was the 12th Senate President from January 5th, 2007 to June 6, 2015. David Mark, he's from there. And in the Northern Governors Forum, they always give the Northern Governors Forum president or chairman to somebody from the Middle Belt to give them false sense of belonging, that they belong to the North. So that is what is holding these Benue people not to know, not to go back to history, not to use their akonuche to know that they are closely related to the Biafran, to the Eastern people, to the Southern Nigeria than Northern Nigeria, as presented in the artificial maps, the artificial boundaries that they used to divide and name locations or name people in Nigeria. Because, you know, the Europeans calls you what they want to call you. They use divide and rule and call you whatever name they want to call you, and they want you to answer it. And so what we are saying is that the killings in Benue State are as a result of Fulani takiya, giving the Benue people or the Middle Belterners false sense of belonging to the big North that runs Nigeria, that owns Nigeria, and yet beneath their lands and people are being taken away little by little, one by one, and one by one. And so the British and their Fulani Caliphate caretakers are using divide and rule by dividing and including many Biafran, many Igbo people, many Easterners to Benue and Kogi and Taraba to make up the big North. Not only that, the divide and rule of the British is a master class they've been using to make sure that they keep ownership and making decisions in Nigeria. Remember the divide and rule between the South-South and the Southeast? A whole one people was divided into South-Side and Southeast. And some South-Southerners are believing that. They're given a false hope, false sense of belonging. It happened as such. Also, the Igbo people, the Biafrans, lived even up to Edo, the Ibanke people. The people of Ibanke who recently came out and opened a mass in large numbers and say, we are now declaring our Igbo identity, which means the Igbos, the Biafrans extended deep into the current Edo state. So, but the British is using their master classic divide and rule to give people false sense of belonging. Why? Beneath, they are exploiting, killing, and making decisions that affects your life every day. Now, the Igbophobia that the Benue people are suffering from is that they fail to look deep. They fail to look into history. They fail to study the culture of their neighbors to understand that the Easterners and them themselves have similar culture and therefore are one people. But they forgot that during the Nigerian Biafran War, where they participated heavily in that war. The Benue people, the Middle Belt people, participated heavily in that war because the Britain and Fulani Caliphate, in order to achieve their objective, knowing the position of the Middle Belt, appointed Gerald Gowon to lead that war. And that made a lot of people from Benue State to join to fight against the Biafrans and the Easterners who have gone to Aburi to negotiate for referendum, to negotiate for restructuring, to negotiate for regionalism, of which if they have bought that with General Ojukwu, their situation will not be the same today. But they failed to do that. They failed to buy that Aburi agreement. If they had bought that Aburi agreement, they wouldn't be where they are today. That is one thing we want you to know from Nkoloma this afternoon. That the Igbophobia that the Benue people and many Middle Belterners are suffering from is from their ignorant participation, ignorant rejection of the Aburi conference and participation in the Biafran Nigerian war, where they killed a lot of Biafrans. And now, with the killings going on in Benue State, they don't know where to stand. Are they going to continue to preach one Nigerianism while the people are being killed? Or are they going to return to their kings and neighbors, the Easterners, the Biafrans, whom they have killed in the past? So that is the dilemma that they are facing. And we will give you just few killings. The one that we are reported that has happened in the Benue State. On June 7, 2021, the Odugbeho massacre. In that massacre, about 40 people were killed and many were injured. Secondly, the Guma attacks occurred between April 11 to April 12, 2 days in 2022. April 11 to 12, 2022, about 25 people were killed and many injured. Also, Makurdi killings, the Makurdi killings, which occurred June this year. It occurred on June 12th, 2005. Is that 2005? Yeah. About 25 people were killed in that Makurdi killings. And then Gwe West attack. That's one that happened at Gwe, a place called Gwe, JWE. Gwe West attack on May 25, 2025. About 20 killed and many injured. And the last one that everybody is talking about, the Yelaweta and Daouda massacres. This one happened between June 13 and 14, just a few days ago, 2025. About 200 people killed and many injured. Not only that, when Governor Autumn was the governor of Benue State, we have series and series of killings. Even Governor Autumn escaped being killed as governor. Even as governor, he escaped being killed. And so all this series of killings in Benue State is as a result of Fulani takiya and Igbophobia. So now they don't know what to do. The Buhari administration disarmed the whole indigenous people when he was there. And now, the question is, when will Benue people start defending themselves? This question is very important because now you have this Reverend Father, Dr. Alia, somebody Alia, as their governor. That governor is not even doing much. He's not doing much. He was telling his people that he doesn't support self-defense. What else do you want your people to do? To continue to stay and be killed and properties burned down and damaged every time? So when we Benue people start to defend yourself, because self-defense is enshrined also, it's also enshrined in the UN and African Charter. You cannot be in your house and somebody will just come from somewhere and start to kill you and you just keep quiet like that. And meanwhile, a lot of your Benue communities, not only even Benue, a lot of communities in the Middle Belt, even Plateau State, across Nigeria, because even in Enugu, in Hamufu massacre the other day. So killings are everywhere. So when are you going to start to defend yourself? Are we, because I will include even we Biafrans, because a lot of killing is also going on across our land. But in Benue, where 200 people were recently massacred and houses burnt, and pictures were shown of children that were burnt, when are you going to wake up from slumber? If not, the more you delay to wake up from slumber, the more killings that will be going on in Benue State and across Nigeria. Because the Fulani terrorists herdsmen terrorists that is rampaging Nigeria. They are rampaging across Nigeria. But communities that are independent, that are on their own before the Europeans came and start to impose their caretaker on the rest of Nigerians, should defend themselves to maintain their identity, to save their community from extinction. That is what we are suggesting to the indigenous populations in Nigeria and in the whole of Africa. Because the Fulanis came to Africa in the 7th century. Before the 7th century, Africa was filled with only indigenous people. Then the Fulanis, because the Arabs, which included the Fulanis, started to migrate because they were fighting themselves, a lot of killings in the Middle East, so they moved to the African continent in the 7th century. And now they're even taking care of so many countries in Africa. And so my plea, our plea from Kolomahadum to the indigenous people is to defend yourself against the rampaging Fulani herdsmen terrorists. And before we continue, I have to beg you to please join, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, and other social media platforms. And before we conclude, we have to remind you again that the killings in Benue, the Benue killings you see, is because the Benue people are entrapped. They are in between Fulani takiya and Igbophobia. And we told you that Britain is one that got the geographic location called Nigeria from the 1884 to 1885 Berlin Conference, where the Europeans placed the map of Africa on a big table and shared to themselves. And then Britain amalgamated the southern and northern protectorates as a country called Nigeria today. And then you see the map of Nigeria, even the place they call North Central, included Igbo people in Benue, in Taraba, in Kogi. And the people in the Middle Belt, Plateau, Taraba, Kogi, Benue, all of them have similar cultures with the Biafran people, but because of artificial boundaries and the false sense of belonging provided to them by the owners of Nigeria, which is Britain, and their caretaker, the Fulani Caliphate. So they give them false sense of belonging. That's why in the 19 Governors Forum, they always appoint somebody from the Middle Belt to be the chairman. False sense of belonging. They included them in the Big North, so to say. The Big North is the one ruling Nigeria. In the genocidal war, they chose one of them, General Gowon, as the head of state during that war, to lead that war. That was why you see a lot of people from the Middle Belt participating in that war to fight against the Biafrans, who had gone to Aburi to successfully negotiate for the separation, for regionalism, for restructuring of Nigeria. They threw that under the bus and started to fight with the caretakers of Nigeria against the Biafrans. And then David Mark, one of their own, also was given the 12th Senate President of Nigeria between June 5th, 2007 to June 6th, 2015. Now, the Igbophobia is because, like I said before, they participated heavily to kill the Igbo people, the Biafran people, during the Nigerian genocidal Biafran War between 1967 and 1970. Even though culturally we are closely related, we are brothers, but they threw that also under the bus. So now they don't know whether to come back to the Igbos or to keep staying with their Fulani masters. Also, you know that Britain is a master of divide and rule. So Britain is using the Igbophobia to keep them under them. And also Britain, using their master divide and rule, also divided even the eastern region of Biafra land, south-south, the one they call south-south, and eastern and southeast. And then the Igbos even extended to Edo State, even Benin. The Igbos were the owner of Benin City before the arrival of the colonizers from Yoruba land. You can tell because the Ibanke people came out en masse to say that they are now declaring their Igbo-ness and rejecting their Obaism. They rejected their Obaism, Oba of Benin. They rejected him, saying that the land, even that land of Benin, belonged to them. So the Igbos extended far and wide, but the Britain is using their masterclass, divide and rule, to continue to divide and divide and divide to make the Igbos look smaller and smaller and smaller. So this is the problem that the Benue people have. Because a lot of killings have been going on in the Middle Belt, not only Benue State, but in Benue State. On June 7, 2021, in the Odugbeha, in the Odugbeho massacre, 40 were killed and many injured. Also, in the Guma attacks, the Guma attacks occurred between April 11 to 12, 2022. 25 people were killed, many were injured. In the Makurdi killings, on June 12th, about 25 people were also killed. In the Bue West GWE West attack on May 25, 2025, about 20 people were killed. And then the last one that is generating fire and tension across the world is the Yeleweta and Dauda massacres. About 200 human beings were killed and many properties damaged. These are human beings being killed. These are not animals, these are human beings. The human beings which is supposed to be protected, which is supposed to be shielded, are being just killed like animals without any security. And we're asking, when will the Benue people start defending themselves? Because when Governor Autumn was there, we saw what he was doing. He tried, there was no actual defense. But what is paining us at Nkolom Harm is even the governor, this Reverend Father Governor that they installed there as a puppet, is telling their people that he doesn't support self-defense. If he doesn't support self-defense, then defend your people. Stop the killings. That's what you should do. If you do not support self-defense, then defend your people. If you cannot defend your people have to defend themselves. Self-defense is enshrined in the United Nations and African Charter. So it's not a crime. You cannot fold your hand while foreigners are coming to kill you. And with this, we shall be bringing today's lecture to an end. And before we do, I have to ask you again to please, every African, every peace-loving African that wants Africa to progress must step up to start to work towards the dismantling of all the colonial boundaries in Africa. Because those are the causes of the poverty, the disease, the war, the killings, the migration, and all the problems that we have in Africa. And with this, we shall bring you to this lecture to an end. Thank you very much for joining me today, and have a very, very, very nice one. Thank you.